let's try to do this. What do you want? What do you want from your announcers? What do you want from your flagship radio hosts? What do you owe the team that you have an affiliation with, if anything? Because what's happened in Baltimore is very interesting. And I know Bonte and Chasky talked a little bit about it, but Kevin Brown is the Baltimore Orioles play-by-play announcer. And
for now.
Yeah, actually, exactly. Late July, I think July 26th, they were playing the Tampa Bay Rays. And Tampa Bay has owned the Baltimore Orioles over the last several years. And that's just a fact. So Kevin Brown is the play-by-play announcer. This is what he got suspended for. Just listen to this, and then I want to get into the owners of Bay Area teams, what their philosophy is. I want to talk about what the fans want to hear, what announcers owe the fans. Just listen to this and tell me if your antenna went up at all.
For the Orioles, Brandon Hyde has felt like this has been maybe the toughest ballpark to play in, but the Orioles have a chance to do something special today. They've already clinched at least a split in the series, winning 2 of the first 3, and they could pick up a series win behind Tyler Wells today. It's been a minute. The Orioles split a 2-gamer with the Rays in June. They had lost their last 15 series here at Tropicana Field. You have to go back to when our now colleague Brad Brock picked up the win in the series finale, June 25th, 2017, the last time the Orioles won a series here at St. Pete. Already got 3-2 at the Trop this year after winning 3 of 18 the previous 3 years combined. It is a stark difference, Ben, and it is not a bad Rays team. It's not like all of a sudden the Rays became slouches in the American League East. They've led this division every day but now 2, and the Orioles once again are back alone in first place.
Gone. Gone for a little while. That got Kevin Brown suspended.
We haven't seen him since.
So he was basically talking about how the Baltimore Orioles, I think Mike Krukow calls it ownage. The Tampa Bay Rays have ownage on the Baltimore Orioles, but this year it looks like the tide is finally turning a little bit, and the Baltimore Orioles telecast wanted to emphasize that. Gone. I mean, you got to be kidding me, right? You've got to be kidding me that is considered something that makes the Orioles look bad? Is that what it is? John Angelos, the owner, his father, Peter Angelos, had owned the team. Both of them apparently very thick-skinned, thin-skinned. Check that. And he got suspended for that.
Yeah, he is not.
Your thoughts?
Well, number one, it's ridiculous. I mean, anyone that hears that clip is probably wondering if they're dropping in the middle of it why we're even playing it. Because there is nothing nefarious, there's nothing insidious, there's nothing defamatory about what he said. What he stated was facts. And then once you hear the reporting and the digging and the journalism behind this that is revealed an even more damning reflection of the Baltimore Orioles, it becomes, I think, hard to stomach for just about anyone. Because everyone loves their sports announcers. Well, maybe not all of them, but I imagine if you're a hometown team and you're listening to your guys on the air, as we do with the Warriors, with Bob Fitzgerald and Glenn Azabuki, or with the Giants, Cruton Kipe, or the 49ers have a national broadcast, but you get to hear the local broadcast for the preseason. Everyone wants to hear their announcing crew. And for the Baltimore Orioles to indefinitely suspend Kevin Brown over things that are true, and if you listen to the beginning of the setup, again, I think he's just trying to simply place an importance on the series because the Baltimore Orioles are playing fantastic baseball. They're first in the AL East, which is a very competitive, the most competitive division in baseball, and they have a chance to take a series for the first time in over 3 years from a team that has had ownage over them. That, to me, there's nothing wrong there, except for the fact that apparently the Orioles felt like there was a cheapness to the comments of Kevin Brown, at least from the reporting, of placing an emphasis on the downtimes in Baltimore, of losing 100 consecutive games, 3 straight seasons, and a cheapness also financially of a team that has not necessarily invested as much as they can in their own, which is also a fact. They're 29th in payroll in Major League Baseball. So, like, all of these things that he's discussing and, I guess, airing are commonly known by Baltimore Orioles fans. And anyone listening to that has any understanding of that team is not going to be mad at the broadcast, but the owner, whether it's John Angelos or his father, Peter, clearly did not like what was coming out of the mouth of Kevin Brown. And this isn't the first time it's happened. So I think what we're basically asking is just, like, what do you want?
Exactly. 888-957-9570. We're going to play that sound a few times just because, to me, it was so innocuous. I would have never thought in a million years that anybody would have taken umbrage with that. Here's the thing. We're the flagship station of the Golden State Warriors. We are the flagship station of the Golden State Warriors. And Joe Lacob has owned the team for 12 years maybe now. He's never said one thing to me about what I say on the air.
Really?
Never. I mean, he may say, yeah, I don't know about that. You say, I don't know if you, I can't even remember some of the stuff, but it might be like, yeah, I don't know if you hit that one quite on the head with the Curry and the Clay compare or something like that. But he has never told anybody at this station, as far as I know, what they can or can't say. Yes,
Curry's been the best thing to happen to my career.
You know, it's Curry / Lacob. I'll give Joe about 40% of that. About 40% of that. But this is the flagship station. So, do you want to hear negativity about your team? Do you want to hear honesty about your team? Should I even be working for the Golden State Warriors flagship station if I'm as critical as I am about the team? Had a nice conversation with Raymond Ritter over at the Warriors about this, and he was flabbergasted. He could not believe that the Orioles did this. And the reason he couldn't believe...
He's head of PR, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. He's director of communications for the Warriors. Raymond was like, first of all, that statistic is in the game notes. Game notes, for anybody who knows, are given to all the media, so you can say, hey, the Orioles, they've won 7 of 11, and they haven't beaten the Rays in 3 years, this, that, and the other thing, and then that's the public information that gets out to the fans. But I'm interested to know what you guys want from your play-by-play people. And I think what we're going to go more to here is our 3 teams. I'm going to leave the A's out of this one. The Giants, the 49ers, and the Warriors. Do they have... The Giants, as far as I know, have never talked about how they're getting negative coverage and it's driving them crazy. Neither with the Niners, neither with the Giants. Like, it's something that serious organizations, I don't think, pay attention to. I really don't. They're serious organizations know they're going to be praised and they're going to be criticized, and the chips fall where they may.
I think it speaks to the insecurity of the Baltimore Orioles, specifically their ownership, because, like you mentioned, and these are the details that are revealed in the aftermath that make it all the more damning that this guy, Kevin Brown, has not been on the air since July 23rd when he uttered those words. And he did the radio call, I think, the following 3 games, but that was because apparently another mandate that has come down from the Orioles ownership is the fact that they only want their broadcasters wearing team gear. So that means if you're wearing you could wear a 3-piece suit to a ball game.
Right.
And if it don't have a bird patch on it, you're in trouble. And that was apparently one of the reasons why the radio guy or gal was not on the air and Kevin Brown had to fill in before he was indefinitely suspended. So there appears to be a controlling kind of like big brother feeling from that ownership group that is not anywhere near what we have here in the Bay Area. And to your point about the Warriors, And just having listened to you guys, talking with our boss about some of the conversations that he has or doesn't have with them.
Right.
Everything that is opined, every opinion or discussion, that's up to you. That's your opinion. They're not going to dictate what you have to say about something that you think and that you have taken time and consideration about. What I imagine that they have talked to you, along with probably other people at the station, are simply errors, factual errors.
Right.
That's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about something that was incorrectly stated, that was misrepresenting, in this case, the Baltimore Orioles. We're talking about a fact that was put out by the game staff or the PR staff. And from my knowledge, from my digging, there has been no suspension of any member of the public relations staff in Baltimore. Also, a big part of that soliloquy off the top from Kevin Brown was that it was paired with a video package illustrating each and every statistic that he uttered. So, do you also indefinitely suspend the production crew? Does the head of the video department have to go? Where does it stop? And so my question is, why is it him specifically, the face of whatever you deem to be irreparable? Why is he the guy, and why the rest of the staff that has basically been in uniform about this one pretty harmless vocalization of a deficient baseball team, why aren't they included in this as well? And if you're the Golden State Warriors would never get to that point because they got not even thick skin. They just have skin.
No, you're right. You're right. I mean, I could play that, and I'm going to play it a few more times, but I could play that 100 times, and I can't hear what somebody heard that made that look like the announcer for my team was ripping my team and was criticizing them unfairly. Now, I think there is a difference between that being a game broadcast. He's the play-by-play announcer, and then maybe, for example, Bob Fitzgerald and Kalena, they're employed by the Warriors. Kruk and Kipe, employed by the Giants. I'm not employed by the Warriors. I'm employed by 95.7 The Game. But we have a partnership. So that makes it a little different. But I guarantee you this, if Joe Lacob were the kind of owner that John Angelos is, and he were listening to stuff and was listening to hear something he wanted to hear, yeah, you know what? I may have to change my ways. But he doesn't care. He understands it comes with a job.
Well, and this is why I'm glad I could talk to you about this, because you have like an infinite more experience than me talking about things that are like difficult subjects that relate to our teams here in the Bay Area. I mean, I know that you're careful with your words, but you're also not going to pull punches. And I think that's why people, I imagine, come to this station, listen to 95.7 The Game in general, but of course, Steiny and Guru from 10 to 2, because they know you guys are going to give it to them straight, whether they like it or not. And sometimes that doesn't mean that you're going to be there to kind of pat them on the back and say, everything's well with the Warriors or everything's all good with the Giants or the 49ers. But I would like to think that's not what people are asking from, at least from this station. The announcer is a little bit different because you're expecting to hear, a kind of a soothing narrator and a documenter in game of your season. But I also imagine you want some sort of reflection of your own emotion.
Right.
Which, if you're losing 100 games 3 years in a row and you're getting tattooed at Tropicana, I don't want my broadcaster to talk about how everything is all green.
Right.
That's not the way it goes.
Right. So I had so when I started, I mean, I'll give you, because this is where I do think the game broadcast is a little different than, let's say, our show here, 10 to 2. So just for clarity. So when I was working for Comcast Sportsnet Bay Area, and they started to do the Warriors games, and they added a pre and a post game show, and then they added a sideline reporter, me. So I was doing sidelines early in the Joe Lacob era, but I was also doing sidelines before he had bought the team. So back then, Comcast Sportsnet Bay Area wanted to be like a news organization. So they hired me, Matt Mayoko, to cover the Niners, and Michael Urban to cover the Giants, and they wanted us to cover the team like a normal sports writer, beat writer, breaking news, not being afraid to dive into something that, if it's controversial, or don't be afraid to be critical, just be a journalist. So that happened for about a year or two, and the bottom line is the Warriors and the Giants are saying, well, why is our TV network covering our TV network? Why are they covering us like the San Jose Mercury News? Mm-hmm. And so Joe Lacob buys the team. I'm on the sidelines, and I'm doing the job that Comcast hired me to do as like a sideline reporter. And the year goes by, and Lacob says, What? How come we have this guy Steinmetz on the sidelines? Well, he was hired by Comcast Sportsnet. He was a sports writer. He's a beat writer. He covered the team. He's a newspaper guy, journalist.
Steinmetz.
Thank you.
Oakland, California, in the
And he goes, well, I'd rather have somebody different on the sidelines who's,
Who likes the team.
less critical. Who's less critical? Because I didn't like the team. I was covering the team.
Yeah.
I was supposed to cover the team objectively. Anyway, so, Joe Lacob's like, I don't get why we have a guy like that on our game broadcast. So they made a switch.
But it sounds like something that not only you're at peace with, you kind of understood.
I did understand that.
Okay.
I totally understood that. But here I am now back on the flagship. And I guess in theory, he could say, why is he on the flagship? Why is he on our broadcast partner station when he's sometimes critical of the Warriors, even though Curry has made his career?
Well, those are facts. He's made a lot of people's careers. But I think that's also the distinction between the actual announcer, or you're part of the announcing crew. So you worked hand in hand with the play-by-play, the color, and all the TV stuff.
Right.
And then the non-in-game announcing, but the actual, kind of broadcast journalism that surrounds the team, that is asked to cover the team, that is asked to, essentially be the bridge between the fan and the team with a sense of honesty.
Right.
But again, I'm just curious what people not only want from the station, but when they watch a game, I guess I can understand, if Bob Fitzgerald was talking about how this player is declining and that player isn't as good as they used to be, that might get a little bit old.
Right.
But that's also something that's true. And those are facts. And so you need a medium in order to explain that and to dig into it and to cover it because it deserves attention. So what we're talking about with the Orioles is none of that. And again, when we play the clip again, you can just listen to it. And originally when I listened to it, I wasn't sure what I was listening for.
Me neither.
Because, unfortunately, Glenn Kuiper with the A's earlier this year had uttered some pretty terrible things on the air. Broadcasters in the past have said some horrible things. Tom Brenneman is the first one that comes to mind in Cincinnati. And all of those are justifiable reasons for not only suspending someone indefinitely, but for them, they're losing their job, in my opinion. This was just perplexing. And so I just wonder, yes, people on the text line chiming in, surprised you haven't called them gutless yet, the ownership. But, what is kind of, when you tune into a game, what are you looking for? What are you hoping to hear? Because I think a lot of people, and myself included, you don't really think about it until you hear something that makes you say, I don't like that.
Right.
So, what is that? I don't like that. Because there was none of that from the opening monologue from Kevin Brown.
No. And there's a Cyrus on the Xfinity Mobile text line, and this was one of the things that was interesting to me. So this guy, Kevin Brown, got suspended for bringing up the fact that the Orioles have had very little success against the Rays, but they're starting to have some success against the Rays. And Raymond Ritter, when I talked to Raymond, the director of communications, president of communications for the Warriors, he said, well, don't you remember, and I'm playing off with Cyrus, don't you remember when we couldn't win in San Antonio? And I said, yeah. He's like, remember we lost like 28 straight games in San Antonio. It was like the longest losing streak in a city to a team in NBA history.
Like they broke it in the playoffs, right?
Correct. Then they went and beat them the following year. But what Raymond was saying is you actually put that out so it can be a positive stat at some point where you say, you know what? We hadn't beaten San Antonio in 14 years. From 97 to 2011, but we beat them 2 out of 3 now in San Antonio. Like, that's what PR does. Like, that's their job. They're not saying we stink because we couldn't beat San Antonio. Now we stink less because we find, like, no, we couldn't beat San Antonio in San Antonio. Now we beat them.
And that applies to also, I mean, everything in the Bay, and I'm curious what people think at 888-957-9570 is like each and every team, and whether it's an announcer, whether it's a radio show, whether it's you're watching your favorite content creator on YouTube, everyone is trying to give you a reason to listen to them,
right.
To give you a reason to stick around, to be entertained, to be educated, to be informed. They're trying to give you all of that on a platter. And over the course of a broadcast, there's so much work that goes into not only the opening and the pregame, the monologue, but also what we're going to hit on throughout what's going to be the story of this game, in addition to, of course, the game itself. So if you're just trying to place an impetus on the importance and the significance, in this case, of a July 23rd regular season baseball game, well, then, yeah, you're probably going to provide some historical context to it, just like you did with the Warriors in San Antonio right now.